Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I am Krista Harmon with the Kent Intermediate School District's Workforce Development Team. And I am so delighted to have Adam Mikrut with us today. He is a creative director. And so we're going to dig into what his career is about, his journey, and hopefully give some young people some information about a career of interest. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Well, as we dig in for this next half hour, which is going to go really fast, young people love when I start off with the question of what you were thinking when you're 16 or 17. Did you think you'd grow up to be a creative director? Tell us about that.
No, definitely not. And I didn't even know the job or role of creative director existed, right? So I think if I'll go back even a little further than 15 or 16, the first time I ever thought about a career and I'll give a kind of a background of what creative director really kind of means, because it is sort of a strange one if you're not familiar with the space, but it's basically a graphic designer, right? So the first time I ever thought about being a graphic designer, I was about 11. So I used to love to draw. I've been a hand artist, illustrator since I was probably about 6 or 7. And the first time I ever thought about, a career in drawing of any kind was when my father actually asked me if I would draw a logo for his friend's company, who was a carpet cleaning company. So I drew a stick figure, like an illustrated figure of a roll of carpet scrubbing their back in a bathtub. And then I saw it on the vans and business cards of his friend, and he gave me $50 for it. And I was like,
Wow.
Wait, I can make money drawing pictures? This is pretty cool. But I still didn't know it was a job. But that was kind of the first time, I thought like, hey, this could be something I could actually make money doing. So.
Yeah, and let that be an encouragement, young people, that sometimes adults around you see your strengths and talents. And so as people are affirming you, like that invitation to do that logo, pay attention to those things, because people are giving you that insight that maybe that's something special about you. So that's amazing. So you earned your professional artist very young.
Yep.
And you thought, I'm going to do this potentially for a living. So what were some of those high school experiences that were going on for you? Did you go to any local camps at Kendall? Did you just start drawing for other people? What were some things going on in high school?
So, I think high school was much more focused on music for me, because I'm also a musician, and I was really into the bands I was in and playing music. And I wasn't really focused on my talent in art, but I still did it. So I had 3 or 4 different comic strips with cartoon characters that I invented, and I would draw and I would create stories. So that was just a little hobby of mine that I kind of kept going all the way through high school. And I will say my favorite courses in high school were certainly the electives like drawing and sculpture and just the different types of classes you could take that were more the artistic. But I still didn't really know it was a career at that point. So I was sort of, I'm not really sure what I'm doing career-wise, not sure what I'm interested in. I know I'm an artist. I know I like that. And I did music, and I was really focused on that. So almost every time I got involved in art as a career, like graphic design, it was in terms of how do I promote my band? Drawing flyers, going to Kinko's and copying flyers and doing the design of my band and the artwork for the headlines and things. And then I had to do a website for my band at one point. So there was all these just things that the band kind of inspired me to start thinking about and learning. So it was much more just this ancillary sort of hobbyist approach to kind of backing into a career in graphic design, so to speak.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Adam, because I've noticed when I meet creatives, that's what you guys are called, creatives.
Yep.
They often have different areas that they touch, whether it's creative food or music and art kind of thing. What was that process like then, starting to decide music versus art? Tell us some of the things, because I think other young people might be wrestling with which direction to go. What's your story?
So that's interesting, because music was always a big focus, and I wanted to be a professional musician. But I knew that it was a long shot, and it's a very difficult world to kind of get into. So I was kind of a realist when it came to that as well. But I had, just out of high school, I had my first son. So I had to start thinking, make money, pay for a household, have a career. So I put college on hold for a little bit, and I went and I started a career in electrical contracting. So that's how I kind of made my money. Then I was raising my family, and I was also playing in bands. So at that point in time, I didn't really have a good focus on like the career of art or graphic design. So I was just kind of doing what I needed to do to make money and get by. So it wasn't until a couple years after that when I was working as an electrical contractor, and I was like, I don't really want to do this forever. This doesn't feel like me. I need to do something that's more important to me. So I decided to go to a community college, and this was just a kind of a part-time thing. So I went to community college for graphic design just because I was interested in that. And it was at that time that I decided to leave electrical contracting, and I got a job in the computer department at Kinko's. So just helping people on the self-service computers. I really didn't know much about actual computer design at all. I told them I did, and I went and I talked to my buddy, and he gave me a crash course in all the computer programs. So I really did have a good footing in computer design by the time I started there, but I really went in kind of blind. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. So I was going to school at GRCC. I was working second shift at Kinko's in the computer department. And that was kind of as far as I knew at that point. I was like, all right, I kind of think this is something I want to do. I still don't really know. And I was in like drawing and painting classes at GRCC and taking English and, all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of backed into a couple of other opportunities. So at Kinko's, a customer came in and needed a specific job, and I did it for them. And they said, hey, would you like to come work for me at my creative studio in Rockford? And I was like, that sounds cool. So then I went there and I worked there for about a year and a half. I got another offer at a web design firm in Grand Haven. I went there and I worked as a web designer, all the while where I was still dabbling in school. So just kind of like a class here, a class there. And then, just kind of like, it goes from there, it goes, and I can kind of give you a little bit bigger of a picture as far as how I got where I am now. But the start of the journey was kind of fragmented at first, and I didn't really know, like I said, I didn't even know graphic design was a career. So
yeah, I think that's really important for young people to hear, because I think young people, and they have certain things that they want to do right now, and then there's this turning point. For you, it was becoming a dad that you start to make different, choices. And so when to even leave and the electrical contractor and make a decision like, no, I'm going to go towards getting that degree or getting that experience, because something must have been stirring in you, right?
Yeah.
So for young people to listen to that you have to take a risk. I wrote down the word risk, right? Because it was a risk to kind of step out and start to pursue that artistic dream. Yeah.
And I've had quite a few of those risks throughout my, just career path. And they've always been led by the heart, so to speak. So I always had this feeling that I needed to do something, or I was driven to do something. So it wasn't always just this cerebral, like, okay, this is the best career move for me, because I can tell you, going from electrical contracting to Kinko's was a big pay cut. And, I was working extra hours, and I actually worked at a car wash as well to just make ends meet. So it wasn't like the smartest decision at the time, but it was what I felt I needed to do. So.
Yeah, and I think I love hearing that you're modeling the grind that we sometimes have to do to make the shifts, that you might have to work 2 jobs, but pursuing your heart for sure paid off for you. So you started school to become a graphic designer. You're working at Kinko's, and then because you're a hard worker or have a good attitude, something was going on there that this person lured you up to Rockford. What do you think that was that you were demonstrating that they made that offer to you?
So I've always put everything into the things that I do, the things that I love. And I really try to do things that I love so that I can put everything into it. And it just shows, when you're passionate about something and you enjoy it, number one, you're never going to work in your life if you put those 2 things together. And then number 2, it's going to show, and people are going to notice that. And that's exactly what happened. I was at Kinko's, and I really knew my stuff, because I would stay at Kinko's even after my shift, and I would learn the software. I would design things. I would even stay after, and people that would come in, like customers, after the department had closed that needed work, I would do it for cash. I would say, hey, I'll do that poster design for you. Give me $10, So it's really just a matter of, show the passion, have drive in what you do. And I do think that people will notice that. That's honestly where most of my opportunities early on came from.
Yeah. And I think it's just, thank you for sharing that. It's just important for young people to hear. So did you end up finishing college?
Nope, I didn't. I actually, GRCC, I was taking some classes. I got offered a couple of jobs. I was working in web design, and I really didn't need school anymore. I was making a really competitive wage as a web designer. I had great work under my belt. I was an art director at the time. So I had kind of worked my way up by that time into the art director position. So I put school on the back burner, but then I got an offer at Priority Health on their web development team, and they put me through school at Kendall. So I was able to, they kind of paid for my whole way there, which was really great. Just that they had the tuition reimbursement program there. So I was able to go to Kendall and then, dabble in the different types of education I could get there. But then I still, as I was becoming a leader at Priority Health, I didn't feel the need of just to continue my journey through Kendall. So I only went for a couple semesters. So I got just enough where I felt I had a good footing. And then I, had the professional experience that made up for the rest that I was probably lacking.
Yeah, I think it's great because it shows some of your natural talents that your career was, moving forward. But I want young people to hear that there are employers who have that tuition reimbursement. So don't feel like you have to do all that up front. As Adam's modeling, he was doing the work and getting recognized, and that's where his career path started going, his ladder was going. So keep that in mind, young people, that there are people who will pay that for you. So let's talk about creative director a little bit. You said it's a lot like a graphic designer. So help young people understand what that's about and what would be the ways to get there. You're showing just by doing the work, you can get recognized. Do you recommend college or anything like that? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so there are definitely multiple ways you can get into a career like this. The first is you got to have a desire for, art and right-brained thinking. It's a real right-brained kind of position. So if you've got a passion for that, anything music, anything art related, expressing yourselves through clothing, dyeing your hair, this is the kind of thing that, like the artistic community will do. And it's all that stuff that drives you to a career like this. Well, I will say it's hard to do a career in art most of the time. This is one of those that sneaks up and you don't really even know it's here, but it is here. So it's a job in basically commercial art. So graphic design is all about helping companies sell products through design, branding, art, whether it's animation, whether it's website design, whether it's the advertisements you see on the street, mugs, t-shirts, whatever it might be. It's all wherever companies can put their message out there in a creative way. That's what graphic designers do. And I think the graphic designer position is probably the first entry into this world. And the creative director is probably like the leadership position as you get through the career and you end up, at the top level of graphic designer. It's probably that creative director position.
That's really helpful. And what about, you mentioned an art director at one point. That was one of your titles on the way on this career journey. What is an art director, just so young people understand?
So essentially, there's a lot of different levels of graphic designer as you go through, and get promoted and you're in charge of more things. So there's usually, I guess, junior designer, junior graphic designer is kind of the entry level, and then graphic designer, then you get senior designer. And then there's a position called art director. And that generally has direct reports underneath it. So you'll have other designers reporting to you and you'll be in charge of those other designers. But then there's a whole nother segment of the creative world that's copywriting. So people are doing the words while people over here are doing the pictures. So those two have to connect. And as you look at, the hierarchy of roles, graphic designers are led by the art director, the copy director leads the copywriters, and the creative director leads both. So kind of a ladder, if you will.
That was a great visual. Thank you for explaining that so beautifully. Because it's important for young people to understand that there are different jobs in the same space. That it's not just graphic design. That
absolutely, there's a ton.
Yeah. So
and even
go ahead and throw a few at us.
There's a lot of right-brained and there's a lot of left-brained. So our project manager Gabriella here at Keene, who keeps us all really, on time, on schedule, and on budget, and all of that stuff. That's a very left-brained, organized position. So it's not all driven by artists. Because if we were just allowed to do our thing, we would run amok. We don't necessarily live by too many rules. So we got to have, a lot of people that are going to keep us, organized and in line as well. So the business can't really necessarily operate without a nice model of everybody kind of, at the helm, kind of helping out. So.
Yeah, that's great. What would your typical day be like? What would you want young people to know about the pace of your day?
The pace of the day with an advertising studio or a design studio is crazy. You got to be ready to pivot at any moment. You got to be ready to answer really crazy challenges because we do not live by routine. It's a very changing and a challenging environment. And that's what a lot of people really love about it. But it's also there has to be a bit of routine. And so the first thing that'll happen when we get to the studio in the morning is we kind of, have our morning chats and we check our email and we get our coffee and we sort of collect. But then we have a stand-up meeting with the whole group and we'll go over all of our projects. What's going on? Who's on what? What's this client, this new email that came through yesterday? This is due today. Let's check how the developers are doing on that or whatever it might be. So that stand-up meeting in the morning is super important to keep everybody on task, to know what they're working on for that day. And then really, it's a matter of cranking through the work for the most part, but there's always little things like a creative review or a question, or, somebody's struggling with an assignment, or, and so my day is just kind of like navigating that, like helping everybody out, making sure that everybody has what they need. And then sometimes I'll do hands-on projects, but for the most part, that's kind of my day. But then the designers are actually doing the work. They're illustrating, they're animating, they're filming video, they're editing. Developers are writing code. The copywriters are over here crafting messages. So everybody's really doing stuff. But at the end of the day, all of that comes together to build whatever we're working on, whether it's a website or whether it's a trade show design or packaging or whatever it might be.
When you were sharing all that, Adam, I'm wondering, you are in leadership now. Was that something that you ended up taking some classes, or how did you become the leader that you are with that career path that you've shared?
Funny, I actually go back to the band because I was always the singer-songwriter in the band. So when I have gigs, I'd be setting up the sound gear for everybody. I'd be saying, okay, this song's in the key of A. Here's how it starts. Here's how the lyrics are. I think the drums should go like this during this part. And that was sort of a natural thing at that point. So then when it came to design, I already had sort of a feel for that. So I think I just did it automatically. But it wasn't really until Priority Health that I was recognized for that and put through leadership training. So I did countless leadership training courses at Priority Health, and I was there for 12 years. I did one with Disney. So the Walt Disney organization came and they were with us for a month. And it was like some offsite, some onsite, some group collaborative sessions, some tests, and just all kinds of things. So I got run through the ringer at Priority when it comes to the leadership training. But of course that helped. It's more like the functional stuff. But I think you're either going to decide that you're a leader and it's natural to you, or you're going to go, no, I'm a contributor. I don't really need to go into the leadership role. And that's just going to be something you decide for yourself.
Yeah, like you said, and for young people to consider their own lives, are you showing natural leadership already in the groups that you're part of as a young person?
Yeah, it'll come out.
Skills can be developed, absolutely.
Exactly, the type A people.
Young people to point out that, these larger companies have more resources and did give Adam a chance to go to school at Kendall and paid the bill, and they had the opportunity to bring in Disney. So that's something to be considering when you think about what kind of company you want to work for someday. You might not have realized that, Adam, when you were a young person, but seems like that worked out pretty well for you.
And it's funny that you say that, because I think I always strayed away from the larger corporate entities, just as like, I don't know, they seem a little stodgy, a little older. I'm not really into that. And I want to do the more like creative kind of young stuff. But there are a lot of benefits to either side of it. You're a little scrappier when you're in a smaller company, but you do have more resources when you're at a larger one, for sure.
Yeah, I can understand that. It seems like you want to be with where the cool kids are, in the smaller creative spaces.
Yeah, but you can make anywhere where the cool kids are. You can just,
if you're there, that's the cool kids. Exactly. Yeah. Why don't you share your favorite part of your role, and maybe the parts that are a little more challenging that's not so much your favorite?
Yeah, so my favorite part is just working with different creatives and different people from different backgrounds. And, I think a collaborative effort, because that's kind of how most creative teams function, pretty collaboratively. That's probably my favorite part. Aside from just the work itself, it's just, designing things, animating, drawing, and creating brands. That's all really fun, rewarding work. But then I guess the point of that is making clients really happy with the product you're delivering. I think that's probably the most satisfying when you actually deliver a product, a design, a packaging, a brand, whatever it might be, and the client's really satisfied. That's probably the best part. And then on the flip side of that coin, the most challenging is probably when the client's not satisfied. That's tough, because as an artist and as a designer, you're putting yourself out there with a creative product. And if it doesn't get reacted to in a positive way, it's tough to take that, criticism. And then as a business owner, you have to go, all right, I hear what you're saying. Let us go back to the drawing board. We'll collect the creative team and we'll figure out a way to make that happen for you. And you just have to do it, and sometimes I think that's the most challenging, either pivoting off of something you're really proud of, but the client didn't respond to, and then addressing any kind of concerns that just come up. Because like I said earlier, this is a pretty wild world, and it's always something different. So there are always new challenges. Either a timeline got missed because there was some sort of new development process we didn't know about, or the client changed their deliverables and now we have 3 packages or 3 SKUs that we have to do, or whatever it might be. So it just is always changing, but the challenges are if the client isn't happy, that's probably the toughest part about a creative role.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I think for young people to hear that is just part of the reality when you're working with customers, that set those expectations that people aren't going to love your stuff all the time. And that's part of communicating effectively. So I'd like to ask you a question about soft skills a little bit, or those life skills that schools are trying to work with their young people about: communication, teamwork, time management. Why are those important? What would you like young people to know about the reality of those things in the workplace?
Well, I think, ultimately, if you're doing something you love, you're going to want to keep up on those types of things. But, you are going to be doing a job, and it's going to be something you're doing professionally. It's not for fun. It might be fun, but you still have to make sure you're remembering that you need to be at your place on time. You need to do what's expected of you. You need to be able to dress with the dress code. You need to deliver things in an appropriate manner. Your emails should be punctuated. The grammar should be proper. Your timelines. If you say this is going to be to somebody by Wednesday, it should be to them by Wednesday. Like, this is a job, and it can't function if everybody isn't really on their game. And I will say that's one of the biggest things too about just a career in graphic design, is you have to be one of the people that's on your game, or you're going to find yourself out the door.
Yeah. And some of those things you just shared is being on your game, being on time, presenting your projects on time, all those things. When you look at your lens backwards, you obviously had some natural talents really early. You were a professional, got paid those $50. What could young people be doing right now to, add to the resume and experiences, so to kind of set themselves up that maybe they hadn't thought about yet before? Anything you'd like to recommend to them?
Yeah, that's a great point, because in the design world, in the creative spectrum, it's all up to you to create and to grab a hold of what you want to do. So I would say, if you like to draw. Just do it. Just grab a pen, grab a paper, grab colored pencils, grab a tablet, get on Photoshop, whatever you're going to do, just draw. If you like to sing. If you like to write stories, get a journal. And if you like to dabble in code, like if that interests you, like website design a website for yourself. I would say the biggest thing is to create. Don't keep yourself from creating because someone hasn't told you to, or someone hasn't showed you the skills. You can figure this out. Like, paint a mural, do something. Just make sure you're creating, because ultimately, after you decide you're going to do something like this as a career, it's going to be the work you have to show your prospective employer more than a piece of paper with a degree on it. So that's a really important point. So just create, I would say.
And I've heard that before, Adam, that you must do this. You have to create your content to show. You have to prove that you have this ability. So just doing it for fun, if you enjoy it, just do it. And then you have your portfolio developing.
Exactly. And then as you get into the professional spectrum, you'll get opportunities to actually show professional work. And then slowly you'll phase out your fun or student work,
Do you guys ever allow students to come in for a job shadow, or are your team members willing to talk to them over Zoom about their career paths? Tell us what Keen's able to offer for that. I know you're busy, so we got it. Yeah.
We have done it in the past, but it's usually in our slow periods, and we haven't had any of those lately. So we really can't accommodate that now, but we have done it in the past for sure. And it's something I know other studios in town do. And in some cases, freelancers will do, with a little bit more time in their hands. But yeah, not generally lately. So
that's okay. That's why we do career chats and we record them, so young people can still access your story. So we have about 4 minutes left. So if anyone has a question, be sure to put that in the chat and I'll ask Adam. But I'm wondering, what have been some of your favorite projects? What are those things that you're like, this is a great job. I'm so lucky to be here.
Oh, you know what? I've got some examples. Let me share some of this stuff with you. Just a couple real quick. And this might give you a little bit more context on what a graphic designer does. So we just got done doing, so Boxed Water is a pretty big client of ours. Can everybody see that? Or
Yes.
is that
Yep.
like small? Is that? So I have
So
this
cool.
right there. So Boxed Water is a fun client of ours. We've been working with them pretty much since we opened. And they do co-brands with different people, different companies throughout the country and in some cases the world. And we just finished one with Universal Studios and Illumination, and we did a Minions co-brand. And what was cool is we work with Illumination, and we actually get to interface with their team and get the Minions assets and get approvals, and so this kind of stuff is really, really fun to do. I love packaging design. It's probably one of my favorites. This one is a little packaging design that we did for a coffee brand. So you can kind of see like what goes into crafting this stuff from scratch. So I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And then we actually, I'm gonna have to see if I can get this. Whoop. We actually do a lot of.
Can I ask you a question? Is packaging design an actual college major? I feel like that might even, is that like part of Michigan State's like packaging program, or is that?
It won't be it won't be the major, but it'll
Okay.
definitely be a course in a
Okay.
graphic design program.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I think that the working with Universal Studios lately has been a lot of fun. We did the Jurassic World brand and then the Minions, but we got opportunities to do all kinds of stuff with brands all over the world. So it's always a new challenge.
And Adam told me today that the Kent ISD's logo was designed by his studio, Keen Studio, and KCTC's logo. So that was a wonderful connection. And just to give a shout out, he has some connections when he was younger with KCTC. So
yep, yep, I did go to a graphic design course there. So
we're at the approaching the end, Adam, already. So I would love for you to kind of share a final word of wisdom with the educators that are on the call today as they have a chance to impact students around some of this, and maybe any students that end up watching this.
So in terms of a career in graphic design, I would say markets are competitive. You know, it's not going to be the type of thing where you can go, all right, I think I'm going to do this, and I'm going to kind of go in 25% and, see what I can do, and I'm going to get a job. That's probably more like I'm going to push, and I'm going to be passionate about this, and I'm going to be in the top 10% of the designers that graduate, and then I'm going to get the job at the studio. Because at Keen Studio, we have 2 graphic designers on the other side of this wall right here where I'm talking. Myself, a project manager, and a couple of web developers, and our studio director. So there are few seats on the bus. So you've got to push, you've got to, really work hard at it, and it's got to be something you're really passionate about.
I think life's too short not to have that way, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
It was awesome. And lots of love coming in that chat there for you, Adam.
Awesome. Appreciate it, everybody.
Have a good day now.
Yep. Thanks a lot.